All right, let's jump right in. Today we're going to break down a really fascinating and, honestly, pretty provocative text called The Architecture of Unshakable Masculinity. It lays out these 8 specific archetypes of men that it claims are, well, impossible for a woman to leave. So let's get straight to the problem this text is trying to solve.
And wow, right out of the gate, there it is. The source opens with this really powerful statement. It's basically arguing that this emotional fragility is the fundamental weakness. And so the entire philosophy we're about to explore is designed as the answer to this one question. How do you build a man who just doesn't crumble?
So who is this unshakable man? Well, the source makes it super clear right away that this isn't about being a jerk or being careless. It's all about a deep, internal sense of self, a foundation of what it calls emotional independence. Basically, his stability comes from the inside out. He's not looking to anyone else to tell him he's okay.
And this is where it gets really interesting. The way the source defines that independence isn't about being isolated. It's about having this rich internal life. His own ambitions, his own code of conduct, his own priorities. And here's the kicker. According to the text, his own world is so important to him, so compelling, that he won't betray his core values for anyone. So let's see how this actually looks in practice. The source breaks it all down into 3 main pillars.
First up, we have Pillar 1, radical independence. And this all boils down to one simple but incredibly hard thing, breaking free from needing anyone else's validation. The text presents this as the absolute foundation for everything else. If you don't have this, nothing else works. So, under this big idea of independence, we get 2 specific types of guys. First, there's the man who practices a certain elegant indifference. And second, there's the guy who deeply understands the huge difference between challenging a woman and just plain chasing her. Okay, this idea of elegant indifference is so important. The source calls it a baffling calm. And just picture this for a second. She pulls away. And instead of him freaking out and blowing up her phone, he just lets her go. She tries to push his buttons to test him, and he doesn't bite. He just watches. According to the text, it's that lack of neediness that creates this powerful, irresistible mystery. And this slide just lays it out perfectly. The source says your typical man, he chases. He's always looking for approval. He's sending those double texts. But the unshakable man, nah. He's busy building his own kingdom. He's focused on his purpose. And because of that, he's not chasing her. He's basically challenging her to come up and meet him at his level.
And here's the punchline for this whole section. The text argues that this dynamic creates this deep, powerful sense of uncertainty. She feels like she can never totally have him because he belongs to himself first, to his own mission. And that feeling, that little bit of uncertainty, the source claims that's the key. That's what makes him so compelling.
All right, let's get into pillar number 2, quiet authority. This is all about leading through strength of character. And let's be clear, this isn't about being the loudest guy in the room or being some kind of dictator. It's the exact opposite. It's a leadership that comes from a deep inner strength, not just noise.
And this pillar breaks down into 3 more archetypes. We've got the man who leads in silence, the one who knows how to set and enforce rules, and finally, the guy who's never jealous, but is always paying attention.
So you might be asking, why is leading in silence so attractive? Well, the text claims it's because that quiet confidence is a massive signal of what's going on underneath. It suggests he's competent, so he doesn't need to brag about it. It shows he's disciplined enough to control his emotions, and it signals this inner peace that's just so rare these days, which makes it incredibly valuable.
Now, what about setting rules? That can sound a little weird, right? But the source says this is a huge deal. And it's not about being controlling, it's about self-respect. So here's how it plays out. He sets a clear boundary. The text says she will almost inevitably test it. But here's the key. He enforces it calmly, no drama. And with each test that he passes, her respect for his strength just deepens.
So that leads us to this really powerful scenario. What happens when she really crosses a line? How does this guy, the one who isn't jealous but is always watching, how does he actually respond? And boom, there's the answer. No screaming match, no emotional breakdown, just a calm, quiet withdrawal. The source puts it so chillingly, access revoked. It's his powerful display of self-respect. He's confident enough to let her make her own choices, but he's strong enough to walk away if she makes the wrong one.
Okay, that brings us to the 3rd and final pillar, the secure protector. This is all about creating a feeling of safety and value. So we're shifting gears a little bit here from his independence and authority to how he actually operates inside the relationship.
And here we get the last three archetypes, and they're all really interconnected. You've got the protector, the man who's emotionally selective, and the guy whose attraction comes from his depth, not from his surface.
Now, the source makes a really bold claim right here. It says that a feeling of protection is one of the deepest desires out there. And we're not just talking about physical safety. It's about being a rock against the chaos and indecision of life. His calm, problem-solving energy becomes like a shelter in a storm.
This next concept, selective vulnerability, is super fascinating. Think about it. The text argues that if a guy is an open book with everybody, his vulnerability doesn't really mean much. But if he's that stoic, reserved guy to the rest of the world, and he chooses to lower his guard only for her, well, that intimacy feels earned. It feels special, like a prize.
Exactly. That's it right there. The value is in the rarity. By being so selective with his emotional core, he makes access to it a precious gift, something she's going to value and remember.
And finally, we have the man who seduces with depth. I love how the source contrasts this directly with so much modern attention-seeking behavior. This guy isn't out there liking every photo, looking for validation online. His appeal is way quieter. It's rooted in his mind, his mystery, and his deep understanding of what makes people tick.
So, okay, we've gone through all 8 archetypes across these 3 big pillars. What's the grand takeaway? What is the architecture that the title of the source is talking about?
Well, here's the core message. It all comes back to a foundation of just unshakable self-worth. And then, on top of that, it's this incredible, delicate balance. You have the radical independence to let her be free, the quiet authority to create consequences for disrespect, and the secure protection that makes his presence a profound source of safety.
And that leaves us with one final, pretty provocative question. The source confidently labels this entire dynamic irresistible. Now, whether you agree with that or not, it forces us to ask, what does this entire framework suggest about the deeper, often unspoken, psychological drivers of human attraction? That's definitely something to chew on. Thanks for joining me for this one.